The rogue Iranian terrorist regime is being absolutely crushed. 47 years of tolerating and enabling the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they are paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country and are seeking to destroy Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran. They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with a truck bombing in Beirut. They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. And this is just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat. Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent pallets of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our people.
All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekakwadash, giving double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. It's coming back with another lesson. What you saw in the beginning was the United States Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, speaking on the Iranians, going into how, there's so much of terrorists, the amount of Americans they've killed, which that might be true. But the thing about it, the Americans, and she's one of them, so-called Edomite, has overlooked, the atrocities that they committed. It's like if they do it, it's for a cause. We can bomb these people and terrorize these people, but for our benefit, and it's righteous while we doing it, which is totally off, man. So we're just going to go into a couple atrocities that they committed and the amount of bodies. She added up the bodies, which probably came up to maybe 500, So let's go to the book of Zechariah, chapter 11. And we're going to drop down to verse 5. It says, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, my power, feed the flock of the slaughter. It says, whose oppressors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. Yeah, that's what they do. They've been slaying Jacob, for hundreds of years. And to them, in their eyes, they did it righteously, man. But what they say don't really count. It all matters of what Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai say. We're going to get into that. But, this right here, I just put Native American. But, this estimates across the Americas, North America, South America, Dominican Republic, island of Hispaniola, all of that, man. The bodies add up. So let's go. It says, estimates suggest that between 10 and 100 million indigenous people died across the Americas due to the European colonization, representing up to 95% of the indigenous population. Man, so that's just the Northern Kingdom, man. We hadn't even got into the Southern Kingdom yet. And she hollering out numbers, man, 500. 500 at the most. Come on, we talking between 10 and 100 million, which that's a big gap. So, we can meet somewhere in the middle. We'll say 50. Even 50 is a lot. It says widespread epidemics like smallpox caused the majority of deaths. Millions more died from violence, forced labor, and starvation. Who did this, man? Who did this? Who did this? It says key details on Native American deaths during colonization. Disease, epidemics, smallpox, influenza, and measles were the primary cause. And we know that these devils put smallpox in the blankets and handed them out, which is wicked, man. It says devastating populations across the continent. Total population decline. A 96% population drop is estimated for indigenous people in the United States between 1492 and 1900. Violence and warfare. So, yeah, man. Trail of Tears. That's one of the atrocities. It says resulted in deaths of 200,000 people, 16,700 people, Cherokee people alone, which, would be the tribe of Gad, man. It said the population decline was caused by a combination of genocide, mass, murder, forced displacement, and starvation. I ain't never heard that. But, yeah, man. The numbers are high on this devil, man. That's just speaking on his landmass. What about around the world? Bombing other nations. Look what they did to Japan. Dropped the Hiroshima, Nagasaki, man. Hey, man, come on, man. It kind of gets you like, kind of heated in the spirit, but hey, man, rightfully so, because these people are definitely wicked. But Yahweh Shemi Shai is going to pay them back. That's what they don't understand. That lets you know how much they really don't believe in the Lord, man. Because if they did, they will understand that judgment is coming for them. So this is the book of Joel, chapter 3. It says the nation will be judged. And what nation more than Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, man? So it says, start from the top, the book of Joel, chapter 3. It says, for behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Yeah, man, we headed towards freedom. We headed towards our kingdom. The Lord is going to restore us, and bring us back to who we are. True rulership, righteous rulership. That is where we're headed, man. As we see the decline of these other nations, and it's beautiful that the Lord put the spirit upon them to destroy themselves, man. Beautiful. So verse 2, it says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Yahweh-Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment, and will plead with them for my people, plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, which this is, going into judging, pleading, judging them. He's going to judge them. In the valley of Jehoshaphat would be known as, so-called Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 20 goes into it. And the Spirit has been bringing it out heavily lately. It says, whom they will have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Verse 3, it says, and they have cast lots for my people and had given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. So, this devil's going down, man. And hey, we just patiently waiting. We in a time where we really can't speak like we want, to, because we reaching those times where anything you say, can be held against you, man. But we're going to let the Lord speak for us, man. So I typed in this is going back to the Native Americans. Hold on, let's see. Yeah. So I typed in about this is going into the Southern Kingdom right here. You know, it says the Southern Kingdom. You know, the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi. So it says approximately 1.2 to 2.4 million Africans, which we know are Israelites, died during the Middle Passage, the Atlantic voyage. You know, alone it says with the total death from capture through seasoning. I don't know what that is. You know, I don't know what they mean by that. With total deaths from capture through seasoning in the Americas reaching millions more of the roughly 12.5 million people kidnapped for the transatlantic trade, nearly 2 million died. So add another 2 million to that number, you know, from the tribe of Gad. It says key mortality figures in the transatlantic slave trade, the Middle Passage. It's estimated that around 2 million Africans, 2 million Israelites died during a horrific journey across the Atlantic. Total deaths, millions more died during slave raids in Africa, transport to the coast, and in seasoning camps in the Caribbean. Matter of fact, let me look that up, man. What in the world is that? Seasoning camps, or process of seasoning, were brutal, often multi-year indoctrination periods between 1 to 3 years for enslaved Africans upon arrival to the Americas, designed to break their resistance, train them for labor, and adapt them to new diseases. Damn. It was a violent, coercive process aimed at commodifying people and reducing mortality through forced adjustment. Seasoning, purpose to break newly arrived saltwater slaves, ensuring they were fit for intense plantation labor and acclimated to the new environment. Damn. Duration lasted 1 to 3 years, marked by extreme psychological and physical trauma. This is why you lost your power. You know, this is one of the main reasons why you lost your power. Yahweh Shem Yahushai. You know, 1 to 3 years to indoctrinate you in what they wanted you to believe. And let's see, context. It was a critical, brutal component of the transatlantic slave trade and population economy used to prepare enslaved people for marketplace. These camps were not formal camps in the modern sense, but rather initial periods of captivity on plantations or in designated areas, often resulting in high mortality rates due to the brutal conditions. Damn, see, I ain't never even heard of that, man. You know, I don't know, man. Maybe other brothers have. That's my first time even, you know, hearing about seasoning camps. So, you know, hey, man, even more fuel for the fire, man. You know, at this point in time, man, if you talking about you want to save Esau, you definitely not going to make it. So let's go to the book of Jeremiah, you know, and we'll end it out. But, yeah, seasoning camps. Jeremiah 50 and verse 33. It says, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together here in America. And all that took them captives held them fast and refused to let them go. Seasoning camps, man. It says, their Redeemer is strong. You know, Yahweh Shem Shai, our Lord Yahweh Shai. Our Redeemer is strong, Yahweh Shai. It says the Lord, Yahweh of hosts, is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that they may that he may give them rest in the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Yeah, these people gonna be quieted, dead, burned up. And hey, that's what we're waiting on, man. Patiently waiting on. So, Lord willing, is edifying. Like I said, I learned something in this lesson myself, man. I ain't never heard of season accounts. So, Lord willing, it was edifying. We want to constantly give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rekakwadash. Shalom.